stationed outside of Sumy in Ukraine. What will you do if Russia authorizes an offensive?
We'll see what happens. I'm watching it very closely.
So President Trump has his eye on Russia over its massive deployment to the Ukraine border, capping off a month of record drone attacks. It comes as one of Vladimir Putin's top officials, Sergei Lavrov, predicts NATO's increased defense spending will only lead to NATO's collapse. Let's ask NATO General Secretary Mark Rutte. He joins us now. Mr. Secretary, after your fantastic conference, almost all the allies agreed. Now you have Vladimir Putin seeing the increase in defense spending and saying it's going to cause your collapse through his foreign secretary. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, it was a huge foreign policy win for President Trump and his excellent foreign policy team with Matt Whitaker, the ambassador here, and Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth. And finally now, the Europeans have committed to pay the same amount of money as the US is paying. And this is a discussion going on since Eisenhower. And by the way, we also need to pay for this, for building up NATO further, because we know the Russia threat is there. And then to Lavrov, I mean, he is foreign minister of Russia, I think, since the birth of Jesus Christ. And since then, anything useful came out of his mouth. So let's not pay too much attention to Mr. Lavrov.
So how do you feel about North Korea's participation now going from a few thousand up to maybe 30,000?
Well, I'm extremely worried about the fact that this is not a European conflict, Russia's unprovoked war of aggression against Ukraine. For some time now, we know that China is supporting Russia's war effort with sanction circumvention, with dual-use goods, and to your point, North Korea has provided already troops now fighting in Europe. Can you imagine that you have a war in Europe going on where North Koreans are helping the Russians to fight that war? And indeed, this report that these numbers could increase. And let's not be naive. Russia is paying for this support. So North Korea is getting long-range missile technology in return, which then makes North Korea an even bigger threat to the US mainland. So this is all interconnected, and even the mullahs in Iran are involved here with their drone technology.
And it's like they're sending the North Korean troops into a wood chipper. They're all coming back in caskets, but it doesn't seem to matter. How do you feel about the report today that the U.S. is stopping shipments of Patriots and some artillery because they say we're running short of it for our own arsenal? Have you heard about that directly from the president and from the Secretary of Defense, or are you just reading about it like I am?
No, these reports are really new, and I totally understand that the US always has to make sure that their own interests are covered. But when it comes to Ukraine, in the short term, Ukraine cannot do without all the support it can get when it gets to ammunition and to air defense systems. And last week, the President and President Zelensky had a very good discussion, particularly focusing on air defense systems. So, yes, I understand the US has to take care of its stockpiles, and at the same time, we have to allow for some flexibility here. Europeans, in the meantime, are really stepping up. They have now committed 35 billion for Ukraine this year. So when it comes to the burden shift from the US to Europe, that's taking place. But we cannot do without the practical US support. This is also in the US interest for Ukraine not to lose this war, and having a huge Russia now on the border of Europe, and of course a secure Europe also means a secure US. So this is all completely connected.
Mr. Secretary, I'm getting the sense that the President of the United States is getting fed up with Vladimir Putin. He's given him a lot of chances, take some political hits, giving him an opening. And I think that Putin is not taking advantage of that opening for peace. Do you think the president's getting fed up?
Well, I'm not going to speak for the president, but let me say that I commend him for the fact that he broke the deadlock with Vladimir Putin when he came into office. He was the only one who could do this. So that conversation started, and we now have to make sure that Ukraine has what it needs, that Russia will come to the conference table and have a meaningful dialogue with Ukraine. So not sending some historian talking about what happened in 70, whatever, but having meaningful talks about today's realities. And the Ukrainians are ready. They want a ceasefire the minute they can get it, and they want to get to a peace deal. And that will mean, indeed, that we have to look for means, including potentially sanctions and other means, to put somewhat more pressure on the Russians. But I really want to thank President Trump for what he has been doing, both on getting the Europeans to pay up for our collective defense in NATO, as well as on getting this conversation going with the Russians.
And, Mr. Secretary, I know he has great respect for you, too, but this is the moment out of the whole weekend that stands out, that people are talking about. They don't necessarily follow international politics. And here's the exchange on June 25th.
You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easy to stop them.
And then Daddy has to sometimes use strong language to get us to
strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
So they calling him Daddy certainly rung out. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio, I've never seen him smile so much. Your reaction to that reaction?
Yeah, but that was great. I mean, what happened, don't forget that before President Trump went on the plane, that the Israelis and the Iranians had committed to ceasefire. And then that morning, before he boarded that plane, they said, well, we might get at each other's throats again. And then President Trump clearly became very angry, and he used some strong language to underscore that. So what I was saying, that it sometimes comes to the leader, and history made and President Trump, the leader of the US, the leader of the free world, to then basically say, here's the red line, I don't accept it. And when it comes to that particular comment, I was really taken by the after movie the White House brought out, Daddy is home. So it was really funny.
General Secretary, it's a very consequential time for NATO, and they seem to be stepping up to the challenge thanks to your leadership. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Brian, and I hope to be back soon.
Absolutely. That would be great. You're always welcome.